Hi, this is Mark at learnhowtogarden.com, and in this little video vlog, this is one of my sort of occasional philosophical musings on my garden. Normally I'm sitting in Betty's garden. In fact, for a change, I've just got Betty sitting in my garden today. I think that's because I've returned recently from France with some fairly nice Bordeaux rosé, which my mother is punishing to the great degree, as you can see on the table. So if you're not used to us at Learn How to Garden, we do have a website. There's a link underneath this video. You can always hop over there and subscribe, and that tells you a bit more about us. But what I want to chat to you today, this came up in conversation recently, and it's about both my granddads were gardeners, and my great uncle Jack Beer was also a gardener. But my mum happened to mention something in passing about my Abbott-Compton and your wedding bouquet. Just go through this. I found this fascinating. My mum didn't think this was important, that I should know.
I get a bit emotional.
Is that the wine or just being emotional?
No, I get a bit emotional because I spent quite a long time in your granddad's garden. And you had two granddads actually, both of whom...
I guessed I had two granddads.
Yes,
I had a
but
mum and dad.
they both had gardens, but the particular one was on your father's side. And he grew the flowers for my bouquet, for my wedding.
For your wedding. So what you were saying to me, this came out in dinner a couple of nights ago. When you got engaged, he asked you what you wanted and what colours, and then...
Yeah, and
so
he actually grew white. He knew that I wanted chrysanthemums. No, get that out of your head. I didn't want chrysanthemums.
Should we do this again?
No.
Oh,
I
okay.
want carnations.
Yeah.
The reason I said chrysanthemums was because whenever I think of your granddad, I think of chrysanthemums because I spent hours literally disbudding. And
so I remember them being in bags.
Yes, huge ones.
Putting them in paper bags with paper one side and plastic the other.
Pardon?
Paper on one side of the bag and plastic the other to protect. Was that my Grandad McPhee?
That must have been. This was in a greenhouse, and I spent a long time disbudding. Anyway, the flowers I had for my wedding were not chrysanthemums at all.
So anybody out there, don't ask chrysanthemums for your wedding. They take too much effort.
They're too huge. I had...
carnations?
Yes.
See, this is what happens when your mum says, I'll have a couple of glasses to relax. Your brain goes south with the swallows.
Yes.
I know. Chrysanthemums.
Anyway,
I'm going mad now, yeah.
I had carnations, and I had white carnations for me and pink carnations for the bridesmaids. And my father-in-law grew the flowers, and then he took them down to a friend of his who lived in the village, and she made bouquets.
That's tremendous, isn't it? So for any prospective brides out there, if your father-in-law's not going to grow the flowers for your wedding, forget it. He's not being serious. You're probably not the first choice. I mean, it's one of those stories. And one of the other bits that came up, what about the flowers near the road? I loved this. This was another thing. This is like a totally selfless thing to do. No, the flowers at the front of the house.
Yes.
That was the other one.
He was a very, very keen gardener. And he worked in the open air on the canals, and his background was from the people who lived on the canal.
He lived on the boats, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
And his whole garden was planned. And at the front of the garden, he grew smelly flowers.
Scented, I think the technical term is.
Well,
for those of us watching.
Smelly will do.
Smelly will do. Scented, I'd say.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
But they were beautiful, and the people who walked by could smell.
So he grew them, not for himself.
No,
just
no,
so that
for
people
the people
walking
who
past
passed by, so they could smell
The scented
the
flowers?
perfume from these flowers.
You see, we did a video on perfume flowers. I don't think any of us grow enough perfume flowers. I don't think they're appreciated enough.
Well, I can't remember the name for these, but we called them gilliflowers. But they're
Gilliflowers?
yeah.
Oh, that's wallflowers.
Wallflowers.
Could
Yeah.
be, or it could be sweet rocket. Sweet rocket used to be called night-scented gilliflower.
No,
Gilliflowers.
these were wallflowers.
Wallflowers.
And the smell from his garden actually hit the road.
See, what's interesting, we're doing this on the 2nd of September. Wallflowers, if you plant them about now, will be ready in your garden for next year. Next spring, you reckon?
Actually, I don't do flowers.
I know you don't do flowers. We don't do
If you
flowers.
can't eat it, I don't do it.
Don't get it in the garden, you see. If you can't eat it, out the garden. If you're lucky as a herb, you might sneak in and be allowed to flower, but not for
Yes,
long.
oh yes, the sage.
Sage.
Beautiful.
Beautiful plants.
Lovely
sage.
flowers.
Yeah.
Nice leaves.
Nice leaves to eat. See? It's what we talk about all the time, isn't it? You've got to grow. I mean, you've grown things all my life. All of my life.
Yes.
Just stuff being grown. And both my grandfathers.
Yes, both. And my father-in-law,
So-
his wife, did not know.
You're allowed to call it my little gran. I'd call it. For those of just a quick aside, I had two grans. Most of us do have two grans, called Big Gran and Little Gran, because one was 5 foot and one was 5'10". You're allowed to choose, you know, which I described as Little Gran and Big Gran. But that's the way I differentiated. So we're talking about Little Gran and Granny Compton.
Yes,
Yeah.
well, she didn't know what it was like to have to go and buy vegetables.
You might have to repeat that. I think we're being not invaded, I think. Well, I don't know. We might be being invaded with British international helicopters on the way to the seas. So you were saying, just repeat that.
I was saying that little Gran did not know what it was like to have to go and buy vegetables.
Which means they didn't eat vegetables, or
No, they ate vegetables the whole year. But whatever was growing was eaten. And they had a special way of keeping them. I mean, onions, you dried them.
like strings.
Yes, and you've got those forever. Shallots, same. Pickled things. And
Because I remember as a child, they used to have sort of clamps or boxes with sand in it, dry sand, and they used to have carrots and parsnips kept in those, which they'd taken.
But the thing was that in both your grandfather's gardens, they had, I can't tell you exactly, but it was like a camp.
Clamp it might be, but never mind. Camp
Well,
will
you
do.
called it a camp, I called it a camp. And you put your potatoes inside, I think you had straw and then earth.
Yeah, to keep them, keep the frost off and keep
And
them in
so
the dark.
we didn't buy potatoes, we had our own.
So what we're talking about, we're talking, what, without being rude, 60 years ago?
At least.
At least 60.
70.
70 years ago.
70 years.
Years ago, they knew seasonality was best. There was no perpetual summertime, there were no air miles, they weren't flying things in from Kenya. They were eating what grew at that time of the year and was probably best for that time
Oh
of the year.
yes, well we ate
In
seasonal.
season. You ate seasonally.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can remember to both your granddads, I could take my basket. If it was my mother's husband, my own father,
Yeah.
I take my basket and I say, can I have a root of potatoes? And that's what I got,
They gave
a
it.
root. And you took them along with the pile of beans and off you went and you cooked them straight away.
And that what tasted better.
Well, I have searched for the taste. I grow potatoes now,
Yeah.
just a few, to try to capture
To
that
that
taste.
taste. And it's why you grow beans.
Oh,
Why you grow
yes,
peas
I grow
and
beans.
leeks and... When my mum comes to my house, she very rarely steals any of my food, but she quite often steals my wine.
Yes,
Anyway,
true.
we probably
True.
better wrap this up because it's been rambling for quite a while. I hope you
Yeah.
enjoyed that. We'll probably do a couple more of these, you know.
Oh, I thought-
I try to get my money's worth out of this bottle. And like I say, they're just philosophical thoughts. But if you sort of digest that, you know, seasonality is the thing. You know, flavour was there and we've lost it somewhere along the way with this desire to have strawberries at Christmas and sort of beans from Kenya in sort of February. And I think if we could get back to sort of using local produce from our local growers, we'd all feel a lot better and we'd have a lot more taste. Anyway, that's enough philosophy for one day. That wine looks like it needs a quick top up, so I shall zip over and do that. And thanks a lot for watching us at Learn How to Garden, and hopefully we'll see you next time.